In this video, I'm going to give you an introduction to SEO, how it works, and how to do it for your real estate business. This video is going to be partially a high-level overview and then partially some tactical things you can take away and start doing right now. Think of this like a real estate SEO 101 course. By the way, hi, my name is Jacob. If you're new here, this channel is specifically for real estate SEO when it comes to websites and YouTube channels. Let's get right into it. So if you have a website for your real estate business, congrats, that is a really good first start. I want to go over some things that you really need to know before you start going down the rabbit hole of SEO. First up, it takes time. It really does. This is not going to be the kind of thing where you start working on your site and doing content and you're going to have leads coming in the next day. Realistically, I would expect 6 to 12 months for it to really start taking off, but it's tough to give you an estimate of how long it takes because really, it comes down to how much time and money you're willing to spend, because the more effort you put into it, the faster you're going to see results and the faster it's going to compound. Can be a little bit technical. I'm not saying you need to know how to code and design websites. Certainly helpful if you do, but you can outsource a lot of those more technical skills. Can be complex and resource intensive. So similar to other social media platforms and anything organic, whether it's YouTube or social media, it does take time, effort, and money. Specifically with websites, it can be a little bit complicated just managing everything, keeping track of everything, whether it's for your content production, your outreach campaigns, for backlinks, technical stuff, and any glitches and any fixes you need to make. You need to really keep track of things, and that's one thing that I think is a lot more complicated than when it comes to running a YouTube channel, for example. Tracking your metrics and just tracking everything is very, very important. And then fourth of all, it is not the cheapest or the quickest way to get leads compared to, let's say, running Google ads or Facebook ads. You can start getting leads the next day. If you're doing a YouTube channel, you can start seeing, results depending on how many videos you post and how long you've been doing it, in a couple weeks to a couple months. You can pay with your time as opposed to your money with a lot of things. Not everything, especially for certain outreach campaigns and getting backlinks. It is easier to do those if you're spending money. So these are 4 things you're probably not going to want to hear about SEO. These are things I would caution you to think about before you really get into it. Now, let's talk about some 4 things to really love about it. So here's some good stuff to keep in mind. It has way more search traffic potential than social media. So if you think about it, how many people are searching for information on buying a house or selling a house on, let's say, Instagram or Facebook or YouTube? YouTube will have a lot, no doubt, but a lot of it's going to be on Google. It also grows exponentially, and that's similar to social media platforms. If you have a YouTube channel, I'm sure you'll see that it grows and it just compounds every year. Same thing with your website traffic and your website visitors. Assuming you're consistently putting in the effort to maintain that, it's not really a one and done kind of thing, but if you nurture it, it will grow. Gets results while you sleep. This goes for any kind of organic campaigns you're doing, whether it's YouTube, social, SEO included. Really, you can have people come into your website all hours of the day. You can upload a new article, and as long as it ranks, you will continue to get visitors from that. The 4th thing is that it oftentimes delivers leads who want to work with you. So this is not the same as doing Google ads or Facebook ads where you'll get a lot of those random clicks like, oops, I didn't mean to submit that. You get people reaching out to you, filling out leads on your website, calling you, emailing you because they value the information you've given them, you've helped them, and you've earned a little bit of trust in that process. Now, if you're wondering what does an SEO campaign look like over time, these are 2 examples of websites I've worked on. Want to explain a little bit of a difference here. So this is a main site example. So this is a website with multiple pages, dozens and dozens of articles, landing pages, informational content. As you can see, it really grows over time. It's also volatile. If you notice some of these peaks and these drops, honestly, that difference between like 1 or 2 days is bigger than probably the first, let's say like 6 months of traction we had getting started. So that's what I mean. It does compound. This is a microsite example. So this was a hyper targeted website really built around a couple keywords for a new development. The goal of this microsite is to generate buyer new construction leads specifically for one neighborhood, whereas the main site is kind of focusing on the whole metro area and a couple big areas. So you can see the difference. We're looking at, over 1 million impressions and 20,000 clicks compared to 15,000 impressions and 1,000 clicks. Both of these websites have gotten leads that have converted. Don't get me wrong. You'll see, we do have a lower click-through rate on this one just because it is way more broad. The hyper-targeted site, way more clicks because it's way more relevant on the new neighborhood. Like, this is a microsite specifically for one singular neighborhood. Both strategies work, but there's lots of ways you can go about doing SEO for real estate websites to generate leads. Now, I'm going to talk about the 3 main components of SEO just to kind of give you a high-level way of thinking about it. So the first component is going to be the design and the layout of your site. So this is really, how does your website look? How is it laid out? How is your homepage designed, your articles, landing pages, stuff like Meet the Team or any introduction type pages? How does that look? What's the structure? What are the colors you're using? What is the user interface like? It should be very, very easy to use so that someone who's never seen a website before can use your site and understand it. This is just a screenshot of kind of a rough draft when I was building out a website homepage, breaking down the components of it. So these are some things you might want to think about for a homepage. Stuff like branding, what we do, having some kind of content on there that potential clients can read and get to know you, learn about the market, social proof, articles, so that if someone wants to go down that rabbit hole of learning more about our areas or about us, they can do that. We have links to our articles on there. So once you've got the design of your website taken care of, and I will say it's an ongoing thing. I'm not saying that you need to have your design 100% nailed down before you start doing the next part, which is content. Think of all of these as an ongoing thing you're working to improve. Content can be a lot of things. It can be actual articles that you've written, such as this one as an example. This is like a suburb guide that we had on our website. This one in particular has generated a good number of leads and closings for us. But content can also be in the form of your homepage, like I just mentioned. It could be landing pages. It could be seller guides, buyer guides, new construction guides. When it comes to content, you really want to think about it as having information that is helpful, it's informative, and it's very, very thorough. Educating someone on your site, wherever they are in the process, and whether they are a buyer, a seller, someone looking to upsize, downsize, buying a historic home, buying a new build home, whatever it is and whatever your specialty is, invest time and energy in having content that is helpful and informative. Now, the next component is backlinks. Backlinks are kind of like likes on social media, except they go from one website to another. So there are 2 different types of backlinks you will want to think about. The first is from websites that are just authoritative in general. These are your Wall Street Journals, your Forbes, your Wikipedias, any of these major websites where everyone knows what it is, lots of people visit it, lots of people trust that site. The second type of backlinks are going to be links from sites within your market or within your industry. I do a lot of business in St. Louis. That means that a lot of the local links I want are going to be in St. Louis. So stuff like St. Louis Magazine, the business journals, the St. Louis Association of Realtors. And there are a lot of different ways that links can look. So you can have it in an actual article. You can have some of these directory links, Yellow Pages, Google Business Profiles, stuff like that. But then editorial links, which are more like in an actual piece of content, are typically a lot more valuable. With links, you can get very creative with how you go about getting them. You can get them for free. Oftentimes, to get the good ones in particular, you will want to have some kind of value exchange. So oftentimes money, could be some kind of collaboration, but just have that on your radar because backlinks will be kind of the third component to think about. Once you've had your design done, once you have content consistently going on your site, backlinks will be the final piece. Assuming those first 2 components are good, backlinks will lift your site up. Because basically, in order to rank on Google, especially for any competitive keyword, you need to have some type of trust and authority on your site. And essentially, backlinks are the way you're going to do that. So that's an overview of these three main components. Now, if you want to start visualizing how you're gonna allocate your resources and your budget, I'm gonna break that down. So with design, I feel like it oftentimes is very front-loaded, meaning you will spend money up front to hopefully get some things taken care of you don't have to worry about again, unless you want to add more stuff to your site or change the look, change your branding, or just add new types of pages. Design is the kind of thing where you want to bite the bullet in the beginning and then get it squared away so that way you don't have to come back to it as often in the future. So that's kind of what this looks like. Let's say, for example, month one, that's when you really, hire someone to get your site built out, get the basics in there. That way you have a template for your landing pages, your blog articles, and then in the following months, you might have some random times where you want to add something, change something, redo the design. Now, content and links. Your budget for these should be more consistent and it should be more ongoing. So if you want to look at this, month one, obviously that's where we spent a lot more money on the design and layout, so we're not going to spend as much money towards content and links, but going forward, I would really recommend aiming to have some kind of consistency with the effort and the money you're spending on your content and links. Now, just to be clear, I am not saying that you should aim to have exactly 5 new articles per month and 3 new backlinks per month, because there's going to be some nuance there, right? You could spend a bunch of money and have 5 articles that are all 1,000 words, or you could have, fewer articles where maybe, let's say you have 2 articles that are like 2,500 to 3,000 words and you only do 2 that month. But if those are really informative and, thorough articles that rank for a lot of keywords, that's fine too. Same with backlinks. You don't want to focus on having the same number of links hitting your site every month because they're going to vary a lot when it comes to quality. So you could have a bunch of links one month from maybe some smaller, less authoritative sites. But let's say like one month you get a link from Forbes. That could cost several $1,000s and that'll be a big hitter to your site. And that'll outweigh a ton of smaller links. Try to be consistent with it because especially the content and the links, these are just going to be ongoing things. At least I should say if you want to continue seeing growth and more results. I mean, if you have 10 articles that are badass articles, they get leads and they rank and you're happy with just that, then great. You could focus on just maybe maintaining and, keeping that going as opposed to spending a bunch of money on new content. But if you are in growth mode, absolutely aim to be consistent with how much you're allocating every single month towards these. And these are just arbitrary budgets. I'm not saying that $1,200 a month is ideal for anyone. I would say that right now, at least for one website, I'm spending between $1,200 and $2,000 a month on mostly content and links with some design stuff thrown in there. Depends on the month, to be honest, but there is no ideal budget you need to have. Now, let's talk about IDX, because anytime I talk with agents and broker owners about websites, IDX comes up, and I'm going to talk specifically about why I personally don't recommend it, I don't like it, I don't use it on any of my websites. First of all, it adds a lot of thin content on your site that is exactly the same as what is on Zillow, Realtor, Redfin. And when you think about SEO, you want to have unique content that is something you have to say that other people can't say to the best of your ability, right? You want to have some kind of unique angle, unique information that no one else has. And when you have IDX, there just really isn't a way to do that unless you're somehow going into these listings and adding something unique and adding something special to it. But really, you're going to find the same listings anywhere online. I mean, when the IDX pulls data from your MLS, that's the same information that buyers are going to see in that same market on these other websites. Another thing it does is it really adds bloat to your website with a lot of pages that get zero traffic. And oftentimes it's not the best way of doing things simply because you're going to have a ton of pages on your site. And I'd recommend looking at your analytics to see, do people actually visit any of those listing pages? I'd be willing to bet you might have a couple, but the majority probably do not get traffic. And also see if they're indexed, because oftentimes you might find that you have a ton of pages that are not even indexed. And what that means when something is indexed is that it is in Google's database. They have crawled your site. They have all these pages that can be served up in the search results. So when you have pages that are not indexed, that means that no one is ever going to see those pages unless they click onto it on your website, or you send them a link to that page, or they type in that exact URL. But no one is going to find those pages based off a Google search. And no differentiation. Again, going back to having the thin content, exactly the same as what's on Zillow, Realtor, Redfin. There really is no way to differentiate yourself just by having IDX unless you're doing something unique with it. Now, some disclaimers. These are based on my observations. Do whatever you want. If you want to have IDX, it makes absolutely no difference to me. Also, I'm talking strictly about SEO. So if you're doing something creative with IDX, where maybe you're sending stuff out to an email newsletter, or you're doing social media to promote a certain listing page on your site, then that's a different situation. But if you are using a website strictly to rank in Google and get leads from that, in my personal experience, IDX is not really a helpful way to do that. Again, do what you want, makes no difference to me. And when I say go into your analytics and look, this is what I mean. So this is in Google Search Console, and if you'll see up here, 4,000 pages that are not indexed. These 97 that are stuff like our homepage, our articles, all of our buyer guides, seller guides, meet the team pages, landing pages. The rest of these 4,000, those were all listing pages. So you can see down here the breakdown, either blocked by robots, they're not found, or they're crawled, which means Google's aware those pages exist. They have just not indexed them, meaning they've chosen not to serve those pages in the search results. One thing I want to say here, this is actually a screenshot from a website I've worked on where we took away IDX. So that's the reason we have a lot that are 404. That's because we had those IDX pages. We removed IDX from our site, so those pages no longer exist. Google is telling us they're a 404 error, which is normal. We're just going to see that for a while until Google, crawls our site again and again and eventually removes those pages from its index. And this is just on Google Search Console. So if you already have it connected to your site, you can go in and do that. If you do not have Google Search Console, you just need to make an account. It'll give you this string of code to copy and paste into your website hosting. Pretty simple. But this is where I'd recommend going to see if IDX is really doing anything for you. And this is just a visualization, just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Website A, let's say that's a website with IDX. So you have a couple of these purple pages that get traffic. They get visitors that are searching for something that come to your site. You're maybe getting leads from that. And then the rest are just a bunch of pages that don't have any traffic, that are not doing anything whatsoever to help you, except existing on your site and being stagnant. Website B, let's say, smaller website, more lean, fewer pages in total, but way more pages that get traffic. So let's say this is a website that does not have IDX. And if you're like, okay, there's no IDX, what kind of pages get zero traffic? In my experience, it's probably stuff like your privacy policy, your terms of service, editorial guidelines, maybe a relatively new article that you just posted that is not going to rank for a little bit. So that's going to have zero traffic for the time being. I prefer to build websites like website B. Again, use your best judgment, do whatever you want. Now let's move on. When it comes to creating the content on your site, you got to remember search intent is absolutely everything. And when I say search intent, think of this as, what is somebody looking for when they search for something online? Like, what kind of information are they looking for, and what kind of result are they expecting to see? Because in the results you're going to see, it's not always websites. So if someone's looking for, let's say, a tutorial on Google, you're probably going to see a lot of YouTube videos ranking before you get to the websites. That's because more than likely the intent is to see a visual, guide on how to do something. You could also see there are a lot of, let's say, maps. So if you see, a search term like best realtor near me, you're going to see some map results showing local businesses on the map before you get down to the websites. So think of this both in terms of the actual type of content you're going to see, whether it's a website, YouTube video, a map, recipes will pop up. So you have the type of content, and then you also have the actual information. So when someone is searching for sell my house in St. Louis, Missouri, and they click onto a website, that's nothing more than a landing page with a lead capture form. Okay, you could get leads from doing that, and a lot of investors certainly do that, but think about it also as what would someone want to know when they are searching for sell my house in St. Louis, Missouri? And it could be several things. It could be a list of realtors, could be a list of cash buyers. They could be wanting to know more about the actual process of selling my house, from pre-listing to listing agreement to going on the market, under contract, negotiations, the whole process. And when you think about this, search intent oftentimes starts with thorough keyword research. So before you invest into making articles and content on your site, you want to do your keyword research to make sure that you are targeting the right keywords and that you are matching that intent. And then once you know roughly what that intent is and what your article should talk about, you want to have helpful, accurate, detailed content that gives someone exactly what they're looking for when they're searching that question or that search term on Google. Ideally, you'll also have original and experience-based content. So I try to avoid making content that is, the same stuff someone could find on Wikipedia or by asking ChatGPT. But if it's something like, okay, here's the 5 biggest struggles we've seen buyers face in this part of town that you should know about before buying a house here, that's, in my opinion, much more original and experience-based content that other people can't say the same way that I could. And that's just one example. So there's going to be a lot of things that might come to mind for you as far as, what someone could want to know about, or just little tidbits and anecdotes that you have that you can leverage from your experience and translate that into content on your website. Internal and external links, another component of having good content. Now let's say the piece of content we're dealing with is a neighborhood guide. And let's say for some reason the NAR lawsuit settlement comes into discussion. You don't want to get into that on the article about this specific neighborhood, but if someone wants to learn more about that, it is good to provide them a way to do that by either linking to another page on your website where you do talk about that, or maybe linking to the NAR website where they have a page about the latest press release regarding the settlement. So internal and both external links in your content are helpful to guide someone in the direction if they want to get more information about a certain topic. And then ideally, original photos, maps, videos, graphics. Again, differentiate yourself, have some kind of content that is unique or that other people don't have. And that doesn't just have to be the written text on your site. So we have original drone videos and drone photos that we'll use. We have created our own infographic maps, our own charts to show our own data. Again, just having something unique and original to set us apart. And then finally, content that ranks and drives leads. So if you're doing all of these 5 steps and you're doing things correctly, and people are seeing your website and your content because you rank for the right keywords, you should eventually start to get leads who want to work with you. Now let's move on. So if you're thinking okay, how do I give original and experience-based anecdotes in the content? You want to explain the nuance of things that you do every single day as an agent, seeing all the different types of real estate throughout the market that you serve. So some examples might be, why are homes more expensive on one side of the street? And that might be something that's difficult to Google and get a good answer if you're a buyer. Or there might not be anything even on Google about, the fact that homes are more expensive on one side of town or one side of the street compared to others. Why do you need a municipal inspection in some towns but not others, right? If there is a different process of buying or selling in a certain town you're talking about, explain the nuance of that market compared to the general metro area or compared to the town next to it that makes it different. This one's a big one these days. Why should you consider paying a buyer's agent when you list? And if you can explain the reasoning specific to a particular part of town, even better. But stuff like explaining, hey, if you're not paying a buyer's agent fee, we currently can't roll that into a mortgage. Your house becomes a lot more expensive to any potential buyer if they don't have those funds available right now. You want to make it more available to a wider pool of buyers. And by offering compensation to a buyer's agent, you can absolutely do that. Just examples. And then one of my favorites right here, what are the restrictions, the rules, or just the way of doing things in town that might not be an official rule or law, but it's just one of those things where that's just how it's done. Especially with real estate, there is so much nuance per town and per neighborhood and area that there are just going to be a lot of things you could probably get into if you really know your market that you can talk about, where some of this stuff is just difficult to find information on online. And the way I think about this is, what are all the hacks, the sneaky tricks of the trade that you know because you've been doing this a while and you know your shit, that is not going to be Googleable to someone who is just starting out in real estate, or someone who is just getting started at researching the process of buying a house or selling a house if they do not know this area very well. Moving on. SEO action plan for your website. If you're like, okay, great, Jacob, that's a lot of information you've just thrown at me. What do I do now? Let's talk about it. First, you want to fix any major design related issues. If your website looks like it was built 20 years ago, if it's difficult to use, if you don't really have a lot of information on there about yourself or the areas you serve or any of your past experience, you want to add that. And if there are any glitches, anything that just doesn't look good or doesn't work the way that it should, fix those as far as the design and the layout of your site goes. Next thing is that before you even get to creating new pages on your site, new articles, new landing pages, take a look at what you already have going for you. So look at your analytics and think, okay, what pages on my site already rank for certain keywords, or they already have traffic coming to them, or they already have backlinks from other websites pointing to them. Because you'll get the most bang for your buck starting out if you focus on just improving what you already have rather than creating a bunch of new content from scratch. Once you've optimized and upgraded what's already there, then you can go and create new pages and support existing pages. So if you're focusing on different areas of town, let's say you have like one article already on the 5 major neighborhoods you serve. Well, once you've gotten those pages good, you've optimized them to rank, to get leads, well, then you want to start going and creating new pages to support those articles. So go create the next thing someone will want to read after one of those pages. Then you're going to want to monitor the performance, continue creating new content. Again, this is going to be an ongoing thing. You want to continue, keep that momentum going, and just, make sure you continue to check in on how your old pages are performing. And if you find anything that needs fixing, again, just go back up to number 1, fix your design issues. If a page stops performing well, go back, upgrade it, optimize it, and then go back to creating new content. Again, like I just said, wait. Sometimes it does take time, so you want to give your content to take some time to rank. Then go back, upgrade, optimize, build links, use your best judgment to wherever you want to focus your time and energy. Now, let's talk about some tactical things to start working on. I recommend thinking about things in 2 buckets. So first, you want to have your core areas. So for us in St. Louis, we have 4 main areas where we do a lot of business. The agents on the team know these areas well. We have a healthy network of agents, past clients of buyers and sellers. We know people in town. We know how it's done. We have off-market opportunities. These are areas where if someone needs help buying or selling, we got them covered. Doesn't matter what neighborhood, what budget, if they're anywhere in these areas, we got them covered. The next thing to think about is content frameworks. I'm hesitant to use the word template because that makes it sound like it's the same thing over and over again and it is cookie cutter, kind of copy and paste. You want to avoid that, but focus on having frameworks that follow a similar pattern across areas. So living in, sell my house in, new homes in, buying a house in, best neighborhoods, where you can replace X blank with any of your core areas or any other area, and you'll still know what you should talk about in that article. And then really take your core areas and just do the same thing. It's up to you whether you want to take one area and just go ham on all the content before you move on to the next one, or let's say maybe you want to do Cottleville and then, living in Cottleville, sell my house in Cottleville, and then move on to Lake St. Louis, living in Lake St. Louis, sell my house in Lake St. Louis. It's up to you, but I recommend having some kind of framework so that way you're not starting over completely from scratch when you make a new piece of content. Because oftentimes in real estate, the keyword is the area itself. You're just hitting it from different angles. So living in Cottleville is going to be a different article from sell my house in Cottleville and new homes in Cottleville. But there's going to be some overlap where the information is still relevant, but you've modified what you're saying depending on the context of what you're writing about. this is what I mean when I say a framework. So think about, what are these pieces you can take and include in a article that's about sell my house in blank and talk about that based on the area. So let's say, you have your citywide and your town specific information. Regardless of what part of town you're in, all 4 of these things you could talk about and have something different to say based on the area you're in. Self-promotion and calls to action. If you're trying to get leads, this is how you're going to do it, right? So hiring a realtor in Cottleville, hiring a realtor in Chesterfield. You do want to modify every one of these sections. So think about these as these are the main headings in your article, like the main topics you're talking about if we're saying sell my house in whatever town it is. And then underneath each one of these, you'll have something different to say based on the part of town. You can also add new topics as needed, because let's say, for example, that we're talking about Lake St. Louis. We've done that a lot. There are a lot of rules, restrictions, and specific things that only exist in Lake St. Louis, where this outline is enough to get started, but there's more stuff I want to add to it. So think of these frameworks as being flexible. Nitty-gritty details, right? So we're starting off with some of the broad, basic things to know, and then we're getting more specific and more detailed going down. And then again, recap, call to action. If you want to have some kind of offer in there, like get a free home valuation, get a free CMA, whatever it is, but you want to balance having informational content with a little bit of self-promotion and asking for someone's business. Now moving on, it takes time. So content and links, especially, this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So think of these as ongoing things and just really make it part of your mental process that this is going to be something you're doing on an ongoing basis indefinitely if you want to see the best results. And I say the same thing when it comes to social media and YouTube. Don't aim to just post 5 YouTube videos or upload 5 articles and be like, all right, good, done, we're good, we're going to get leads from this, let's call it a day. No, instead I would recommend thinking about this as, okay, what are the metrics we're going to hit every single month, right? If we're aiming to have 3 YouTube videos a month, 4 new articles on our site, and somewhere between 2 and 4 new backlinks a month, and we're just going to keep doing that, we're not going to bite off more than we can chew. We're just going to do something that is manageable every single month and just keep doing that every month in and every month out, and it will compound. Because going back to the beginning, when I show you a page like this, you see the peaks and the dips. I mean, every single day it's different. But what's not different is the amount of effort we're putting into these. So again, it's ongoing. More so with the main site, I will say. With some of the microsites, it is sometimes more of like a one and done kind of thing, or like a one and done, and then we'll revisit that every other month. But with the main site, we do aim to have, ideally 1 article per week, 3 to 5 new backlinks per month, and then modifying and upgrading our design and our layout as needed on an ongoing basis. So I hope this was helpful to give you a sense of how, the SEO process works with the real estate industry. Again, whether you are an agent, a broker owner, an investor, maybe a developer, these are the principles I recommend thinking about. So that way you can take these ideas for content, modify them, have your frameworks that you will apply to different areas of town, high-level overview, and some ways of thinking about things that I'd recommend to keep you on track and to keep you going in the long term to see the best results. So if you have any questions or concerns about this, or you need help with something, let me know in the comments down below. Outside of that, thank you for watching this video. More SEO content to come in the future, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.